Start streaming. And should be coming live any minute now. Yep, there it is.
Perfect.
Oh, and I need to. There we go.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Alright. And somebody who's in my stream here, tell me how the audio is going. You can probably hear me just fine, but can one of my guests say something so they can hear
Cheers.
that?
I'm Lego Groyper. Can you hear me? I'm Lego Groyper. You hear me? Say Groyper.
Oh, Groyper!
Groyper.
And I'm Mazzy. I don't know if you can hear me. I can, so
You guys
that's
hear?
not gonna do any good.
Can you guys hear the guests all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is JonDave. Helper, JonDave. My name is Nate. I'm known as Occult Fan, and like I said, cheers.
All right, friend, how's the audio levels? Are they better than last time, or I'm like still like way louder than everybody else?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think we're gonna have to.
So we're in good shape.
Cool.
The audio levels, my audio levels, or their audio levels, or both. I'm lower than most of the guests. So that's a nice change. Is this better?
You sound good over here, man.
Well, yeah, over here. I'm talking about on the stream because it's a little different.
I bet you sound good there, too.
Well, they're telling me. Okay, so I know what I need to do. I need to turn down. Here, I can probably do it like this.
Yeah, let me know if you tweet
How's
this
this?
out so I can retweet.
Yeah. How's this?
Okay, I think it's best if we just start talking.
Yeah, we'll start talking and you can adjust throughout.
Yeah. That's how
Let's
we
go
need
ahead
to
and do that. And yep. So anyway, welcome to the Walrus Show. And yeah, just please let me know how I can, and I'll keep adjusting the audio until we get it right. Sweet. All right. So welcome to the Walrus Show, and got my guest with me here today. We have Lego Groyper.
Hello?
We have Occult Fan, aka Nathan Lee Miller Foster.
Hiya.
We have Mazzy, hailing from the great state of Denmark. And we have my good friend JonDave.
Put on a happy face and Ave Maria, everyone.
You got a good voice for radio, John.
Thanks. I get that a lot.
Okay. So, Jacob, what do you have for us today?
All right. Well, there's been a whole lot of crazy stuff happening this week.
Yeah,
actually.
Got the sense.
And well, before we get into that, let's start with the white pill because JonDave said he had some story he wanted to tell about the pumpkin patch. So I'll go ahead.
Yeah, should we start it out on a very cozy note?
Yeah,
seasonal
let's do
one?
that because we're gonna get into some heavy stuff. So let's start out with the white pill.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Jacob. So we can't forget all of the good things that are still left in the world. I think that's important. We could all kind of take the black pill sometimes, and sometimes we have to take our daily dose of black pills, as we, I think, will this afternoon. With that said, last night, after Spooky Movie EU night, I went out with some friends to do some pumpkin patch exploration. In my neck of the woods, in the Garden State, there are, believe it or not, a lot of relatively big farms. So it's a bit of a cultural thing in the Northeast, especially, maybe the rest of the country as well, the rest of the United States, to do sort of corn mazes and pumpkin patch picking at night as you drive closer to All Hallows Eve. And that's what we did, and it was as dark as it can get. We were towed out on a tractor with a bunch of strangers. A little spooky, just enough. One person got very scared. She wanted to back out and not do the maze because she thought she'd get lost in the cornfield. And I said, don't worry about it. This looks easy. And lo and behold, we navigated the corn maze in only 21 minutes. So that was a lot of fun, and this individual got over some of her fears of the dark and mazes, I guess. And then after that, the sort of reward of getting out of the corn maze is you get towed to the pumpkin patch, and you get to pick your own pumpkins. And I got 2 pumpkins, a little white one with a spindly stem, and I got an orange pumpkin, almost perfectly shaped, and it had natural green, not a sort of like moss or anything like that, or mildew, but or algae, I should say. But it was, how pumpkins can be. They could be red, they could be orange, green, even purple, or even blue, I think. So it's a little green, and it's perfect for Joker carving.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because it's got the green hair already on it.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
So that was a lot of fun. Had some cider, and it's by a bonfire. So keep it cozy, everyone.
Gotta always
Oh.
stay cozy. I mean, if you're not cozy, you're just not gonna be able to make it, man. We gotta make it, bro. We're gonna make it.
Exactly.
Going to make it.
Definitely.
And you
What
didn't
we've
have
done
any.
so far.
And you didn't have any shining moments in the maze there, right?
A couple of us we started Kubrick posting, singing the Mickey Mouse song. It's kind of fun.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, exactly.
I like that you keep that you hold on to traditions like that over there. I mean, in comparison, Denmark is violently under-mazed. Now that I think about it, we have very few mazes here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mazzy.
I'm just saying this is something we need to work on.
Yeah, I think that's more of a British or English tradition with the mazes, if I remember correctly. And that's how it came over here.
I don't care. Mazes are just cool.
Yeah, they are. Oh, I haven't seen a single one in Bulgaria. They got lots of corn, but no corn mazes. So.
They should make crop circles into corn mazes is what they need to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what's been tripping me out in Bulgaria is like they're picking up so much on American traditions now, or they're like not even like keeping their own as much as they do like at Christmas, the kids have Santa Claus and everything, which is totally American, and even in England, I don't think they can they do have Father Christmas instead, but like it's definitely not Bulgarian by any means.
Yeah.
And, but they
You have to wonder how much Coca-Cola had to do with that becoming a popular phenomenon. And it's the same thing with what you're talking about. It's spreading commercially, it sounds like. That's the American.
I'm sure that played a big role in it, plus being under communism did as much as possible to suppress any type of spirituality at all. So, they instead they did the secular holiday. Their big holiday in the winter was New Year's, and they did all the same things, but they did it secularly on New Year's instead of spiritually on Christmas. And so I think it was like after that, then they had to it'd been 2 or 3 generations under the communism, so like kind of had to reinvent their traditions,
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In Bulgaria, wasn't Epiphany more the height of Christmas season? So January 6th?
I mean, that might have something to do with why it's but the way they celebrate it now, I know, and it's still really like they have lots of their own traditions still and stuff. But I don't think it's like as much to do with Epiphany and stuff. So it goes.
What's
all
one of
way
the
up
cool
to the
traditions in Bulgaria that they have for Christmas that we don't have over here?
6th. Well, like on New Year's Eve. Well, a lot of people do that here too. But like on New Year's Eve, they don't eat any meat at all. It's all vegetarian dishes. And one thing they do is kind of weird that they make sure to have an odd number of items on the table, like odd number of dishes.
Yeah.
Those both make sense, leaving the incarnate behind for the spiritual and embracing that of the new year, and the odd allows for an influx of new energy since there's an indeterminate amount.
Yeah.
My limited familiarity with Slavic culture is one of that. One thing I remember, I should say, is that they do like odd numbers. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't give 2 roses, you'd give 3, as an example.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm trying to think
Well,
about
whenever
like
we
because
talk about culture, and we always think about our own, and we never think about how it goes back to like 10,000, 60,000, all the myriad that can possibly have taken form. You know, we only even think about the ones that we have the time to learn about.
And speaking of, in Bulgaria, they have some traditions like at Perpericon, which is it was like the great temple to Dionysus that was built like 5,000 BC, and it's one of the oldest. They call it the European Machu Picchu, I think. But yes, it's crazy, huge megalithic city carved into the top of the mountain, and it was the secret hidden temple of Dionysus back in the BC times, even pre Greek. But and it was supposed to be where both Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar were brought to be like whatever the pagan equivalent of baptism
Initiated,
was.
right?
Yeah, pretty well.
That's
When they were
fascinating.
babies.
Oh, yeah.
you
some
mean
testament
baptized?
to it.
Are you talking about baptism, or you said initiated?
Well, it would been more like baptism, but
Baptism is an initiation, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
And actually, I think
I was
the ritual
just
had
trying
to
to
do with
be
fire.
I was just trying to be clear. I didn't know if there were any other like things that were done. I didn't know if it was just
Yeah.
baptism or anything else.
Well, and I think the ritual had more to
Wasn't
do
there-
with fire, which actually brings me back to what I was talking about, because they still, to this day, on whatever time of the year, they do these fire dances where you've seen the people who walk on hot coals or whatever. Well, they dance on them, like yeah, they'll make the fire and spread out the coals, and they all like dance through it and stuff. And they've been doing that for who knows how long, thousands.
So you're going to do that when you're over there, right? You're going to send us a quick Twitter video?
I'm not against it, actually. I know how it works, so. They used to juggle hot coals. So.
There? Could you actually get? Could you actually get yourself there to do something like that? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's physics more than it is anything else. You know, because coals don't burn, and it takes them a minute for the heat to transfer enough to like I used to juggle hot coals because you're just touching them for a second, so that they don't sit in your hand long enough for you to get burnt. So I would have no problem with it.
The same thing is actually said about white hot steel. Not red hot, but when it gets to be white hot steel, the heat capacity of it makes it harder for it to transfer heat. However, even though I know how the physics are supposed to work, I'm not going to try and pick it up.
Yeah, I don't blame you there.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. No, but yeah, do make a video if you decide to juggle some hot coals.
I mean, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but you know.
And is this the Orthodox Church you're talking about?
Well, yeah, but it goes back before that. You know, it's
it
an
goes
older
back before
tradition than that, but it's Orthodox now. You know,
interesting. Okay.
But because they've been doing it 7,000 to 8,000 years at least at that one place, Plus, you know, they do it other places too. So who knows how long that tradition goes back? But yeah, they've been doing it for a very long time. But let's start getting into the happenings this week, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and I think it's all related. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the big things that happened this week is they had Mueller did his thing, and then they started investigating the Russiagate investigation, so Spygate or whatever. And they just upgraded that this week to an actual investigation instead of an inquiry or something like that, where they can actually start putting together indictments and everything for all that stuff. So we might actually start seeing some, to use the boomer MAGA terminology, the swamp drain a little bit, you know.
Not a moment too soon.
Oh, Animal Mother's cracking me up. But yeah, finally, right? So that's really interesting. But then, and I'm almost certain that this is related. So yesterday, out of the blue, the FBI releases a whole big document dump on the Finders cult.
Oh, I was reading about this just before the stream.
That was the one I wanted to hear about.
Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with who the Finders are, it all started back, well, it started, I guess apparently the group started in the 60s. And, but it came to light in the 80s, I think 86 or 87. It started with in St. Petersburg, Florida, I believe it was. And there was these two guys dressed in like black suits. Somebody had called in because they were worried. They saw these two guys and dressed in like really nice suits, driving a van with 6 kids that they said looked quote unquote disheveled, and whatever that means. But so they called it in as possible child abuse, and so when the cops showed up, and they ended up arresting the guys for child abuse charges, which later got dropped, as a matter of fact. Oh man, Appalachian Marv just went live. But he's competing with me now, the bastard. But so at the same time that happened, so anyway, they started looking into because they were talking about the Finders and all this stuff, which was primarily based out of DC, but they had different compounds all over the country and possibly all over the world, who knows. And there's a lot of crazy stuff with it, but they had, when they were doing it, they had found a bunch of, they raided one of the compounds, I think it was the one in DC, and found a whole bunch of pictures and slides, and the newspapers didn't say this, but the photos I saw had a bunch of videotapes and everything, and they were saying, because they put them all in the like plastic bags, like big Ziploc bags, and they didn't really say much about it, but the reporters were saying, but what you could see through the bag, there were like slides and stuff with lots of children and weird stuff, including naked children. Then later the police who were going through the evidence were saying that there was all kinds of crazy stuff, like the kids dressed up in like ritual garb, killing goats and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so the story goes, because this started coming to light more when it not sure if you, because it wasn't actually very long after that the whole, there was a big thing. I don't know how many, if you guys are familiar with the Franklin cover up at all.
Yes, I was just about to mention that. And I was going to say real quick, I recall watching a video from 2010 with the retired Fed, like I think he was in the FBI, talking about all this stuff. And I remember seeing it back then. I was like, there's no way. But it's like now, when you see all the craziness going on, it's like nothing really shocks me that comes out now.
Yeah. It gets crazy because a lot of these people in the finders had worked with the CIA. And stuff. So, like, especially, well, not directly for the CIA, but that's how the CIA works. They have a bunch of front organizations or front companies and stuff. And at one point, the CIA even admitted that they own the finders as a computer training thing. Which back then, computers, you wouldn't have had the child porn on your computers and stuff, you know what I mean? Because they barely had, you know, they wouldn't have had like image capabilities and stuff. Most computer monitors were monotone and everything, you know. But still, they had found but there was a lot of stuff with the computer stuff there, and apparently the finders had been founded. The founder had done some. They called him the game caller, but he had did an interview where he supposedly tried to explain some of this stuff, which makes it seem even weirder. You know, definitely not believable. But he was saying that they were in, like, they started in the 60s. And they said, oh, we're just like any other commune that started in the 60s, except instead of hippies, these are all businessmen that were tired of the business world or stuff. And they were all higher ups and different companies and stuff like that. But so that's pretty crazy as it is. And he said he would send them on different assignments, but they called them games, and training the CIA and computer stuff, all kinds of different stuff. I got some, but so anyway, they had all these links to the CIA. And the story goes that they would, actually incredibly similar to the NXIVM thing, the way they did their recruitment stuff, from what I understand. And all this stuff was written way before the NXIVM stuff came out. That's why it's crazy. That you're like, hey, wait, that's exactly what they said it happened with NXIVM. Because they would get the kids that, they would start recruiting the other one. They would go out to bring them to like a playground or something. And then one of the kids would lure one of the other kids closer to the van so they could pop out and grab the kid and pump him full of drugs and take him off to one of their compounds to do their crazy rituals and stuff.
Well, I was gonna. Can I make a little side note, or were you gonna say
Sure.
something? I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Like as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking about the power structure. You know, we're seeing all these populist movements kind of pop up all over the world, and what I think is we're at a point, and you guys probably heard this before, but like, you know, the old, you know, Republican Democrat paradigm where everything was controlled is broken, and so what's going on is we're seeing all this information start to come out, and you know, very powerful people at the top are getting panicky. And so what I'm hopeful for is I'm hoping to see more of a populist movement kind of rise up so that we can end up getting the right people back into the institutions so that it's not a system that's just favoring, you know, some crooked billionaires.
Well, and that's the thing, too. This actually kind of brings that out because, you know, it was all the Republicans and it was all the Democrats or whatever, but they were both very caught up in these types of things with the finders and different stuff like that. You know, like we all know about the whole Pizzagate thing with Hillary and everything and the Podestas. So that was on the Democrat side. But going back to the Franklin cover-up, which was about the same time as Finders, and that's how those investigations kept overlapping. That's how they got associated, because there was basically uncovering this huge network, and so the whole Johnny Gosh thing. That was when. I think that was 1987 as well, wasn't it? With Johnny Gosh.
Well, yeah.
No. Before that, yeah, Johnny Gosh was a little later. But before that, there was the big thing when it first came out about how they had the gay underage callboys at the White House.
Right. The Bushes were involved.
Yeah, and the Bushes were involved. But that's how it hit the papers, was gay.
Callboys.
Gay callboys, but it was basically this whole child trafficking network. You know?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. You know, this was more of a normie type of a thing that I saw, but it was a guy, I forget his name. He was a whistleblower who was in the CIA. I think it was like probably around 2013 or something like that. But he was even talking about in a TED talk that sometimes there would be some sort of an op going on where they're working with a rich asset in Saudi Arabia or some other country. And, you know, so for some of them, they don't ask for money. Sometimes they'd be like, I want to, you know, somebody who's trafficked. Like I want to traffic like child prostitute or something like that.
Yeah, and they would have to get them the stuff to.
Yeah, and they would just have to do it. So it's such a strange, dark thing for me to talk about. It's kind of like hard for me to even talk about, you know, right now definitely. When you but yeah, that's such an unfortunate thing to see. And I don't think the CIA, when they were formed, I don't think the intention was ever for them to be held accountable for things.
Oh, definitely not. And remember, like Epstein was a CIA asset or an intelligence asset. They didn't say which agency.
Well, here's what I think. There's something that happened where, you know, maybe some people had access to like blackmail or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And it was something that was tolerated. It was something that was useful. But what I'm feeling like, what it looks like when I'm looking at it is, you know, those people who were working with the government got too powerful, and then they ended up getting the upper hand. Because, you know, I remember back, like, it was that video the guy spoke in 2010. He was saying that back, you know, that when the FBI knew about some of these things, they didn't want to bring it out because they thought it was going to cause a complete, like, crisis, collapse of our society almost.
Yep. And I was getting into that, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Eventually. No, you're fine.
Right.
You know, it all helps segue into each other. But, so, the reason I think that this is intimately related, this is crazy, too. With the, and I haven't had much time to go through the document dump that the FBI did, because they just released it yesterday. But, the reason that I think this is, that the whole DOJ investigation, that the reason they released these finders files just now, at the same time that they escalated that, was an inquiry into an investigation or whatever, where they can start doing the indictments, and then poof, the next day they're releasing these finders files. Because if you're looking on here, Ted Gunderson, who was investigating the he started investigating the Franklin cover-up, and he was the biggest one that did that. John DeCamp was a senator. I think Ted Gunderson worked for, I think he was ex-FBI when he started doing this. Something along that lines. But he had sent the, so he had found all this stuff on the finders, and had sent it to now Attorney General Barr, who was I think a prosecutor in the DOJ at the time, or something. I forget what his title was. He might have even been Attorney General then too, isn't it the first time? I don't know, but he had sent it to Barr, who's now behind the Attorney General behind this whole investigation now, who had passed it on to Robert Mueller, who was head of the FBI at the time. So it's kind of crazy that these two investigations that are, 25 years apart, more, almost 30 years apart, are intersecting with the same exact people, you know what I mean? Because, because Gunderson had sent it to Barr because the FBI was basically like, it seemed like they were obstructing justice. Another one another key phrase that's popping up there.
It's so obvious, like when you look at the whole thing, like I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that spiritual warfare is a thing, and we're talking about this subject, and I'm not saying like Kanye West is amazing, but like his album came out, like everybody's saying Jesus is king. We got this stuff coming out. It's just clear that the fight between what's good and what's evil is a real thing. And it's like, once you understand that, it kind of clears out so many other complications. You don't get these stupid political hang-ups where you're arguing over the same stuff, like some MAGA boomer with 3 stars in his account or something like that. Like, this is, once you understand what's really going on.
Yeah, once you realize that and see what's really going on, then you're not fooled by the whole Republican-Democrat false narrative, because you realize they're both on the other team. And they're just pretending to be against each other when they're really working together behind the scenes, And I would say that even goes way deeper than that. Like, because the CIA, MI6, Mossad, the former KGB, during the whole Cold War, basically, that was another one of those fake dichotomies that was really the same people working behind the scenes.
Yeah, in the military-industrial complex going, how can we keep advancing our weapons without a war?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we do it without a war, please? Because they had to keep everybody happy,
Yeah. And that's part of it, because then they'll, create a conflict so they can sell the weapons to the military to bomb the shit out of it. And then once they bomb them as much as they're going to bomb them, then they get the contracts to rebuild it. And, it's all a way of milking the population.
If you wanted to make a really dark meme, you could make something with the circle of life going in the background of that. The Lion King.
Oh man!
Oh, that's
and be like, this is what they want.
Yeah.
But what I can't help but think, I know they blackmail each other and they backstab each other.
It's all about power.
That. It's all about power. But why can we not muster an iota of the commitment they show each other? I mean, I know it's a corrupted loyalty they have, but we should be able to find actual loyalty for each other as pro-white people.
Yeah.
To organize, to work together. But still we see these weird divisions among, oh my God, I mean, even stupid crap like Charlie Kirk.
Oh man.
Oh God. He's obviously controlled opposition, so
absolutely.
I'm so embarrassed. Like, I remember it was like a year or two ago when Turning Point started popping up in the news. I used to like Charlie Kirk.
But
because they don't show their true color. I mean, I never liked him because as soon as he starts talking, he gives off that used car salesman vibe to me.
I love it when Fuentes talks about his teeth. When Nick Fuentes talks about Charlie Kirk.
It turns out, from what I read, Charlie Kirk, his father was involved with construction projects that were done by then developer Donald Trump. If that's true, it would really strike a blow to Charlie Kirk's whole "pull yourself up by your bootstraps" narrative.
Oh, I mean, that one's so, like, the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative is like, sure, maybe you could do that like 30, 40 years ago, but.
But I mean, this is exactly what I mean. Even now, we're discussing Charlie Kirk. He's pointless. We we need to focus on bigger.
I mean,
things.
Groypers are marching to his little things that he's speaking at. So
that is absolutely beautiful.
It's so good. That's like, and they're not investing any money into it. It's just kings for the cause, bro. Just showing up.
Yeah, I was really impressed by. I guess there was a call to action by Fuentes to show up at these college tours, and because I was wondering, how are all these questions pouring in? It was as though there was a coordinating aspect from our side, so that's good. And Kirk had to outright lie when he said that he never commented about why he was deferred at West Point.
Did Groypers listen to Nick Fuentes too, though? Because, like, he blocked me and almost everybody else I know.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was blocked by him. I asked him in a super chat to unblock me. It was on my main account, and he's like, I don't even remember blocked. Like, so I don't know.
He blocked me.
It's just a natural reflex with the mouth.
But I was like doing it on purpose because, like.
All right. So I will not share this in the group DM. In the group, there's a group. I don't know if you guys in the Groypers get along. You never know. You never know what mood a Groyper might be in when they show up to the stream. So.
I think that Mazzy's point is very well taken, and it is. This is the maybe more grayish pill. It is disheartening that it seems like we have such difficulty mustering any sort of unicity, and
it is.
Yeah,
it can be. I will say it can be.
Can be.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this is necessarily what's happening, but that is a classic FBI, CIA, or intelligence, I'll say, technique to infiltrate and then start spreading division over bullshit crap.
Oh, all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
I don't have any direct answers to any of these things because these are huge, huge questions, and I'm literally just one dude. I'll tell you, though, one thing that I feel like should be included whenever we're talking about our own sovereignty, our own ability to dictate our lives' time the best and most we can, whatever that looks like pragmatically, I think that we have to mention something about our own food and air and water supply while we're at it, without throwing out, OTG and without, whatever. It's important to keep in mind, too, permaculture is something that we should be passing on to our families and those that we keep close to us, because we're all going to be able to contribute on different levels in society. And I think food, water, and air should be one that we consider. That's my bit to add right now.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
But first we have to get there.
And that's actually kind of one of the things that keeps this whole messed up system going, is that most people, if you can control the food supply and you can control the water supply, then
you got everything.
Yeah, then you can control the people, because they're not gonna. What would happen right now if everybody was to boogaloo or whatever?
Well, it's food, it's water, then it's the media, and
the food supply gets cut off.
Communication.
Yeah, the food supply gets cut off. Public waterworks might be going down. Electricity goes down.
Yeah, 48 hours, right.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like a lot of this started at this sexual revolution. So, because Freud was all about, he thought everything was about sex. I believe there's a documentary. You guys should check it out. It's called The Century of the Self. It's it's by Adam Curtis. And what it talks about is how people who are in quote unquote, public relations, it's actually propaganda. What they wanted to do for advertising and consumerism, they basically sat around and they're like, how can we get people to buy a bunch of stupid stuff they don't need, to make us richer? And so they started using Freudian concepts.
Well,
Yeah,
it
I'm glad
started
you brought
with
this up because
yeah,
we're
and that
talking about the
started
work
with
of Edward Bernays. That's his nephew.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yep.
Freud's nephew,
Edward
Edward
Bernays.
He
Bernays, and
went
that's who
to
started
march
that.
in the Macy's Day Parade and smoke cigarettes. He hired debutantes of the era, so the chicks that you want to be, and then they smoked the freedom torches in the parade, and Bob's your
Yeah.
uncle.
Yeah, and the women in the advertisements were suffragettes, I believe. So, like, you think about that, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, if you think about that, it's pretty interesting because you kind of see that trend going on now. But I was going to say, what my point was is I think it's all started there because once you get to that sex part of everybody's brain and you just give them all the dopamine in the world they want, all the endorphins, it's easier to kind of get them to go along with, basically what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Billionaires getting behind, environmentalist groups,
Yeah.
where what they're really doing is they're trying to secure resources for themselves
Right.
and get us to internalize negativity on ourselves and eat bugs. But anyway, my rant is concluded. Sorry.
No, it's a good one. It's a good rant.
It's a good point.
I will not eat the bugs, and I will not live in the pod.
Will not.
We live in the pod.
Absolutely not.
Bugs.
Oh, and see them actually. I think they because for so long, and it's been a slow build up. You know what I mean? And they've been slowly perfecting the art, sort of. But it's almost like they fell off. They don't have the subtlety they used to have.
Yeah.
What?
Even 5 years ago, people weren't saying that. And it's like every time I see it, well, maybe 5 years ago, okay. But all I've been seeing is, all these, these huge publications, telling me to eat bugs. I'm like, oh, great, man. My self-esteem, man, it's already suffering. Now I got to eat bugs? Thanks, man. I'm just trying to get by. I want my yang bucks,
Is
bro.
it not ironic that this is like a frog-based kind of thing too? So they're trying to feed. Is there some kind of like subtextual meme war going on with that?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I would say some of it, I think, is.
Someone just went.
No, I was going to say, I do think some of it is. It's like psychological kind of warfare in a way, because like there's this other thing that came out of Sweden where some doctor was saying that like, oh, maybe we should eat human flesh.
Yeah.
That's not real. That's like, I think it's either a beta test to see how far they can go, or it's like some weird psychological kind of thing, warfare thing.
Well, and
Or more.
Or
Maybe
is it
certainly.
simply the in real life shit posting?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know about the?
yeah, I think a lot of this is giant trolls that they're like.
Yeah, but
Will sit there back
it's,
laughing how they can get people to like freak out about it.
Because it wasn't an article on a bunch of different sites. It was like one or two weird looking, the crappy ones that some guy just like sitting in his basement just, looks up on his phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you do that, Jacob?
Oh, I'm sorry. Dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. You know what I mean, though. Like if you're reading yourself and you saw those things, you'd be like, all right, I don't know. Like, if this ain't on CNN, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, it's crazy how much of this stuff comes out of Sweden. What's going on there?
Have any of you ever heard of the activist film group thing called the Yes Men?
Yeah, sure. They did this whole thing. They're an anarchist alleged group, but put some quotes around that.
Yeah, definitely. They do like the cash that comes in, no doubt about that. But they did in and that was of course before all of this. But they did actually do an event where they suggested using the fat of corpses to make candles. And they had all these candles spread out at this event and talked about it. And I imagine it's something like that.
And where's the only other place you've heard that before?
Oh yeah.
But these are. I mean, they also did the executive leisure suit. That was basically a tight-fitting golden suit with a giant penis that allegedly had this LCD monitor on it, so the executive could always monitor his employees anywhere he was. And they had this entire auditorium of industry executives and professionals clapping at this.
What?
They were completely, and I mean, it was this guy standing in this golden spandex suit, and he pulled a cord and literally like a lifeboat, this huge penis showed up.
Sounds
being
like
up.
something out of the Burning Man.
It was completely insane, and they also tried it on college students where they talked about how they could extract nutrition from the feces in the first world countries
Wow.
and use them to produce synthetic burgers and meal replacements in third world countries.
Yeah, I read
Wow.
a thing. I read an
I read
article
something about that with they were going to do it for astronauts, where it kind of made sense.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that makes sense, but the interesting thing was that you had these people, and because they were on a stage, and because of all these executives had probably paid $1,000 to be there, they were uncritically listening to
Yeah.
everything that was being
Oh.
set up on that stage.
That reminds me of something. I don't know if you're familiar with Catherine Austin Fitz.
Oh, you mentioned her. Excellent.
Yeah, because she was telling a story about how she had went to go, and she had always been talking out against these people, right? But it was what was the one, the smartest guys in the room? Halliburton, wasn't it? Not Halliburton. What was the one, the big one, and that fell apart in 2008, caused the whole giant crisis?
Enron?
Enron.
Oh, Enron.
But they were all from intelligence backgrounds too, you know, and particularly CIA. Yeah, what a surprise, right? And she is saying that she had went to go see him talk. One of them talk, and she had went there to like ask tough questions or whatever, you know, and she did that. She did what she went there to do, which was to like call him out on some crazy stuff, and she actually got him to like kind of break his whole demeanor, you know, because they get that like what I was talking about, the whole, I call it the used car salesman, you know, or it's just so plastic and fake nice type vibe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do not like that.
Yeah, and but she was saying by the end of it, when it was over, she was like clapping, and she's like, "Wait, what am I doing?" They're clearly like using these psychological manipulation techniques.
Right.
You're
Hypnotist.
telling her entrainment story, which is
Yeah,
when she
the
went into
entrainment
a
story.
large.
That's
Right,
how.
they had a speaker in the front, and then a bunch of audience members, and he started making points, and making more points, and making more points, and she felt herself not listening, and suddenly she kind of came to, and she found herself looking at the guy next to her saying, "Isn't he great?" And they're clapping, and she flipped, and she was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" That's
And she
I'll
knew
throw one
about
more.
it, and she
Yeah.
had went there to like.
Of course.
to
I'll throw
say
one more at
something.
you for a Catherine Austin Fitz story. She had a whole bunch of people in the room, all these types of elite who have the power, who have the ability to make these shots, movers and the shakers. And they're also the people who are, you know, very vested and have all the money and things. And there's a room full of concerned people who still, you know, they want a world to work, but they're not willing to give up their shares in the money. And she says, look, what if there was a red button you could press right now, and it would just reverse all the damage by nullifying the Federal Reserve System, nullifying all of the currency that we have right now, and bringing the deficit back down. But it would mean that you would have to lose your power, right? Would one person in the room press this red button? And you know how many people press that button?
0?
I mean, more than zero.
More than 0?
Well, 0 times 0, right? Exactly. I'm talking about their spiritual ethic, my man. More than 0.
Yeah. Well, 0 is the root of spirituality, but we're not going to go there for that's a whole other topic.
You would do well to you would do well to 6 of Cups of that. You know, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah. But yeah, so and that's actually because that is a product of the whole MKUltra stuff, which
Which created all of our. That was the project that got us all those nice pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it's also the project that the Finders were supposed to be a part of too. They were using the kids, trying their different techniques out on them and stuff like that.
They're trying to see about breaking the psyche and seeing if you could kind of handle them.
Right, which is the point of the whole. Which is the point of the whole satanic ritual part that they were, is to make to break down the psyche and stuff like that.
Well, the reason for doing so is one that Christopher Loring Knowles of The Secret Sun illustrates about singer from Cocteau Twins, Liz Fraser. Liz Fraser has walk-ins. Liz Fraser literally is connected to star information, if you will, or whatever higher level of interdimensional aspects she is able to channel through her music.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And so to the point. And so to the point, I mean, and it depends on your level of understanding and your ability to, so to say, grok this shit. But basically, the same thing can be done with children at this level. And for people who do this in any kind of magical context across from Thailand to, Bangkok to fucking, Gobekli Tepe. I wouldn't say it was done there, but my point is think ubiquitously if you can. This is done for a specific human reason, and that is to allow spirits to manifest within a being. Or at least that's one.
It's to break this, to get them to...
It's one reason. It's one reason.
Yeah. It gets them to disassociate from the body. With so much going on, they go into whatever inside themselves. Right, well, that leaves the space open for something else to come in. And that's why it's such a generational thing.
Jim Morrison had that song, The Changeling, same concept.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I wonder, when you think about a lot of those, the artists that were out there, at Woodstock in the 60s, I wonder if they were involved in some program. The members of the Grateful Dead was involved in the CIA in the MKUltra type thing where he voluntarily took LSD. I believe it's the first time he took LSD.
No, you're...
Is that not true? Is that misinformation?
Jake loves the Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
he will teach you right now. He will school you on the dead.
It's not that it's not misinformation. It was King Kesey that started the whole... He started to marry pranksters, and then he was the one that had volunteered for the whole LSD experiments and stuff. And,
okay.
Right. And then so it was then doing the acid tests and stuff that, so the Grateful Dead was the band for the acid test, which is what brought him to popularity, and King Kesey was the one. But that's how all that started, was that he had went, and the story goes that he used to swipe some of the acid or whatever drugs they were giving him to take home, and he'd have parties at his house with them all doing it, and that's the story anyway.
Don't forget Owl, Owl's bearer.
Owlsley.
Owlsley, there we go.
So then, later on, when they were doing it, Owlsley had figured out to supposedly completely separately. This is just how the story goes. I obviously wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you for sure. I have met Owlsley before though, and I've met Kesey's son, though he's kind of a jackass. But
maybe I don't know why I'm thinking. I mean, maybe this is a little bit out there, but so. When I'm thinking about MKUltra, when they're introducing LSD, maybe the question was, we introduce this and see what comes about. How is it going to shape and shift things? And maybe they wanted to see if there's a way to steer individuals. So I'm not necessarily saying that there's a thing with the artists and all that, but there's definitely, I think drugs definitely had a big effect, especially the ones that were being created by agencies.
They had to figure out how they worked. I mean, I remember once, unfortunately, I lost that book. Once I came across a little book, Danish book, by an odd publisher. that spoke about the experiments done with LSD on Danish patients during the 50s and 60s, and all the way up through the 70s.
Yeah.
Few people are alive, but I mean, some of the things they did to these people. In one case, a woman on a hospital called Bispebjerg in Copenhagen. She was put in a cell, a room they called it, but it was a windowless cell with just a bed. She was given a dose. I mean, she was given 2.5 milligrams of LSD.
Wow, that's a lot.
2.5 milligrams of LSD
That's
intravenously.
That's like 25 hits, basically.
25, no, it's about
2.5
100.
milligrams.
2.5 milligrams. You usually, the ones I had dealt with was between 100 and 200 micrograms.
Yeah. So a microgram and a milligram.
So we're 1,000. It's a factor 10.
Well, a gram makes 100 sheets of 100, so 10,000 doses. So a milligram is 10
they were giving
a milligram
megadoses.
is 10 doses, so it was like 25.
So she was really dosed up beyond her own mind's comprehension to bear the drugs being shot right into her in this cellless this windowless bedroom.
Yeah.
Awful place.
Yeah, and they're like, I think they were high.
They were creating jokers.
With no context or idea what's going on, too.
They then left her in there for 18 hours.
Awful.
Wow.
Awful.
I mean, and these were common experiments that happened to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
and to this day, there has been no official acknowledgement of these things happening, or no. I mean, they are literally just waiting until these people die off, and luckily for the people in charge of all this, most of them ended up, of course, killing themselves because they never really came back to reality after.
Right.
Well, I think Bill Clinton, there was some apology that MKUltra happened, but I believe they destroyed like tens of thousands of documents.
Yeah, the X-Files used it in the show and everything. It was Bill Clinton doing a throw-up apology. I think he also apologized for some of the Tuskegee prison experiments or something like that.
Yeah, and that was another thing, speaking of data dumps, that they actually just put out, just had released some, about 3 or 4 months ago, they just released a bunch of files about the MKUltra that supposedly had got closed in the 70s or whatever when they had the big... A lot of people don't realize this. This is all a matter of public record to have to testify before in front of Congress that they did all this stuff. People think it's a conspiracy theory. It's like, no, they admitted to this in front of Congress, and it's all part of their congressional record. You can look it up, But supposedly it had got ended then because of that or whatever. But obviously it kept going. Project Monarch was supposed to be an extension of it, for one thing.
Well, Jake, you know that MKUltra actually absolutely ended. It's absolutely over. Project Paperclip never, there's no, just...
It's over, guys. We're sorry. We're sorry, but it's not going to happen again.
Everybody go home. It's okay now.
Wait, who's that knocking at my door?
Oh, no. No. Oh, gosh. No, man. I it was probably about a year ago. Like I was dealing with anxiety stuff. It was like really when I wasn't really walking in my faith, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I need anxiety meds or something, because like everybody's talking about them, and I remember I had gotten on Xanax. I wasn't even taking that much. Maybe wasn't taking that much at all. It was like following within the instructions, and that stuff made me retarded, man. And I remember when I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm off this stuff. Now it's like no big deal. And even with that small amount, I even experienced like withdrawals, and like you get this spike of like anxiety for no reason when you're going off of it. And that's when I was like, man, like there's so many people on these meds in our country, and that's when I really started kind of like figuring out like there's something up here.
Well, especially
they simply can't let those. Sorry.
Yeah, they're saying they were talking about the millennials, but at least in America, like there were so many millennials that uh they grew up being pumped full of. So that was when they were giving Ritalin to kids that were like 3 years old and stuff. You know,
Yeah,
kids
Uh,
I
in
was put on
kindergarten
Ritalin, and
lined up
I was
to
put on
take
Ritalin
Ritalin.
in kindergarten.
You
Yep.
know,
in kindergarten.
kindergarten.
Wow.
That's
Jesus.
anti-human,
Yeah,
frankly. On
dude,
the
my
No
teacher.
Agenda show, they talk about how the pills in the 80s and the 90s were the precursor for the bigger changes
Yeah,
we're seeing today. So I thought that was insightful because I feel there's some resonance in there.
Yeah.
yeah, that stuff. I think that definitely disrupted something. I remember my teacher. She was like one of those teachers who couldn't handle, boy energy, whatever. And she suggested it. And I remember, so I was like, when I got to first grade, I was still on it, and I think I stopped taking it or something, and I started getting in fights with kids and stuff like that. It's like, dude, I remember that teachers too. I remember one time she pulled me aside. She's like, "Don't tell anybody I told you this, but like I think you're really special," and that's it. Nothing happened. But as a kid, I was like, that's kind of weird. So who knows? Maybe somebody that's kind of weird when you think about it. But I definitely think that taking that stuff disrupted some of my development for sure.
Maybe they were trying to help your self-esteem because they saw you suffering in a way that they understood only a few kids could, and it was such a new thing in society.
Right. It could be something like that.
That was her way of trying to help you. Like,
Yeah, I
hey,
think that's what it was.
you're okay. You're not, some freak. You're okay. This shit. You have adults around you who are doing stuff to you that you cannot control. It's gonna be okay.
Right. Well, it was her idea for me to get on Ritalin, though, which was
Well, fuck that.
I know, right? You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Like,
telling you, dude.
But
right?
Oh, that's
she
awful.
could still believe
Yeah.
she was doing the
I
right
think she
thing.
believed she was doing the right thing.
Oh, that's awful.
But what?
Oh yeah, because they
what-
sold it like it was this. Like they had this all figured out, and everything. All these problems are because of chemical imbalances and all this stuff. Which I could talk 3 hours just about that. How ridiculous that is.
Yeah, I mean,
You're here.
But,
I was probably just sad that my dad didn't live with me. That's all it was. Just hilarious. Like, anyway, sorry, cut you
No,
off.
that's a primal wound, man. Like archetypal, the Trinity, the Father, Mother, Child, be it
Right.
daughter, son, or whatever. Honestly, because there are natural occurring, but and that's God bless everyone, truly. But
Yeah,
when you destroy that can really set the Jenga up at a low curve. You know what I'm saying?
for sure.
Then you combine it with a society where you can't just be sad. You have to
No,
have a
yeah,
diagnosis.
Right.
Not just, you don't just have a bad day. No, you need something to pep you up. No, maybe I need this bad day. Maybe this bad day, when I remember it 2 months from now, that is what will bring perspective to the day I'm having that day, and that day won't suck.
that's how
Amen.
it
Maybe
works.
that's why I need it.
Amen. Yeah,
But everything has to be a diagnosis today. The most horrible one I saw was one they called not OC. Well, it wasn't OCD.
ADHD.
No. It was a new one. One
You're
of the
not
new.
OCD. Okay, not attention stuff. Go ahead.
It was called something like compulsive disobedience disorder. Or
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
and if a kid was prone to answering back or asking too many questions to authority figures, he could have this disease, this diagnosis. So he can't just be curious anymore. No. If he's and I mean, this is not if kids ask just any questions. This is what comes into play if kids start asking the wrong questions. Like,
Yeah.
mommy and daddy, why does Nikki have two daddies? That is odd. No. That is compulsive disobedience disorder.
Now, what is that? What is that on?
well, and a lot of
It
it had to
exists on
do because like
on
the
an
Ritalin they would give you because of attention deficit disorder,
right.
which I don't even believe actually truly exists as like a because like the study that they did to prove that it wasn't the result of too much sugar in the diet. They gave like one group of kids some food, and they gave another group of kids the with twice the same amount of sugar, and they both acted the same. What they don't tell you is The control group was given the same amount of sugar as in a dozen donuts.
That's
And then so
a result of
okay,
a lot of.
you give them like enough sugar that's a result of a dozen donuts.
Yeah,
They're already maxed out, so you can't tell the difference because of,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the same technique, same method they used back in the '60s to prove that just how horrible weed was,
Yeah.
cannabis. I mean, cannabis is not good in the long run, but the way they did it was to fill a sort of an automatic inhaler pipe thing and pump smoke for 5 minutes straight into gas mask these I think it were chimpanzees were wearing. They didn't mix in any oxygen. I mean, take any reasonably sized mammal and deprive them of oxygen for 5 minutes, and you will see damage. Of course, you will see damage. But you could have pumped in. I mean, lavender mist. It wouldn't have made a difference. The point was there was no oxygen. It is basically a dishonest way of conducting an experiment, and it's done for one thing only. They have already decided on which results they are looking for.
Yeah,
before
and
they
so they're
even
trying
start.
to figure out how to make it look like that.
Yeah, they're simply about making a protocol that will prove their point and appear scientifically sound.
Well, I think there's we're at this point where the materialists and the technocrats, left, atheists, whatever you want to say, it only makes sense that we're in this situation because if all you believe in is science and a priori data, you're going to be, it's kind of interesting. They thought that they could figure everything out, but it's not so easy once you start going against nature. And when you look at it, I don't look at it as this major diabolical thing. Like the way I talked about even my kindergarten teacher sounded kind of ominous and spooky. And I don't think it's always, it's not like this concerted effort. It's just we're at this point, and then, you've got the religion of science and the traditional religions. I would say the ultimate religion, Christianity. That's the ultimate one. But it's like, we're in this weird spot.
But yeah, they have been good at what you can say, nursing this complete, unwavering belief in authority. I mean, even to the point where you have, hi, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. And just a guy standing there in a white lab coat, and all of a sudden, he must be an authority. I don't care that it's a doctor telling me about over-the-counter sleep medicine for illnesses that I don't have. He's wearing a lab coat.
Yeah, and what they're doing, they're actually like, specifically like, if they're almost like rubbing it in your face if you know what they're doing. Because what they're doing is they're like talking directly to the subconscious and bypassing the conscious mind. And they're basically saying to you, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. They're like, haha, we know your conscious mind is, isn't going to put much stock into this at all. But that's not who we're talking to, so screw it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I saw on TV many years ago an experiment done in Denmark about authority.
Yeah.
And they had a guy outside a shopping mall walking around asking if he could see the bottom of people's shoes. And he was just wearing normal clothes, and not one, of course, would comply. But then they put him in what looked like a uniform, but not uniform of any sort. And he still asked them, and all of a sudden, people would just show him the bottom of their shoes.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like a police uniform or anything, but it looked like something like that.
He looked basically like he looked like a parking meter guy. I mean,
it looked official. Was the key.
He looked official. And
that's why the priest wears the robes. You know what I mean? It is definitely. I think Jake actually nailed it right on the head with the speaking to the subconscious. That's probably one of the most fundamental conversations to have about what's going on there. But gentlemen, I have to duck out. I have another previous obligation. I've stayed as long as I can, and it's been lovely talking with all of you.
Hey, man, it was nice talking to you.
Yeah.
I'll be seeing you on Twitter, bro.
Cheers, everyone.
Great to meet you, Nate.
And that's going to be interesting, too. I can't wait to hear that. interview.
Yes,
you're about
please,
to
everyone,
do.
feel free to follow up, everyone in this conversation. And hi, Sicilian. My name's Nate, and I will see you around. But feel free to follow up and say hello if you guys want to. And Jake, I'll talk with you later.
All right, buddy.
All right,
Talk to you
peace
later.
out.
And
Hello, everyone. What's up?
Occult Fan is
Hey.
Hi,
gone,
man.
but the Sicilian has joined us. So
Well, that's
There we
good
go.
because unfortunately it won't be long before I have to leave either.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually probably got to get going in a little bit as well. So.
Man, right when I come on, right?
Hey, nothing personal.
Yo,
Nothing personal.
I'll at least stay on for 30 minutes. We'll see.
All right, the Sicilian is here, so it's been great, everybody. We'll talk to you.
We're done. Last episode, guys.
Goodness. So yeah, what's the topic? What's going on?
You weren't listening?
I was listening, but like I don't know, I wasn't there at the very beginning.
Yeah. Oh, well, it started, we were talking about the finders, and it basically started with the finders and how it's related to the DOJ investigation in the Spygate now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they both just happened like in the past couple days. Like first they escalated that Spygate.
Yeah. Yesterday, I think the FBI wasn't it yesterday the FBI documents were just released.
Yeah, and then yesterday
So.
they dropped the finder. See, and most people don't realize, I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again. Catch you up to speed. That when the finder stuff was first coming out way back in like '92, I think was when this happened. And Ted Gunderson was researching into that. He's got a whole report about it. I should throw a link in. I'll throw a link sometime. Somewhere.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I, we read a lot of the documents. And
Yeah.
like up on just everything that was going on.
Yeah, at the time, because it's been published since the '90s, but you probably it didn't stick out to you then, these names of who he sent it to and how they got passed on. Because Ted Gunderson had sent the evidence to who the guy at the DOJ at the time, who's now the Attorney General, Bill Barr, or Barr, whatever. Yeah, who, and it was all about how the evidence he had sent them was about the FBI getting in the way of the investigation and, obstructing justice. Another key thing there. And then he had passed it on to the then head of the FBI, Robert Mueller. So it's really interesting that Spygate gets escalated one day, and the next day, the document dump about the finders that, on first glance, you wouldn't think that they have anything to do with each other, but if you start looking at Ted Gunderson's stuff, you're seeing like, oh wow, these totally intersect perfectly, And
it's crazy the times we're living in.
It really
For
is.
sure.
And it's
For
crazy
sure.
how that all came up about, how that all came up, and all this happened like 20 something, almost 30 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's still so relevant. Still the same people, and it's not done yet. You know what I mean?
It goes to show what kind of scale these people are working on, what kind of patience they have.
Absolutely.
I mean that is a problem we're dealing with, the fact that we don't really see beyond our own lives other than in sort of an abstract manner.
Yeah.
But these people they do. I mean, some of these families they've thought this out since the mid 18th century.
Right.
Yeah.
They've had a plan and they have been working tirelessly for it.
It's like, for what? When you really look at it, it's like, for what? And in the way I look at, I mean, like the Bible, I mean, Jesus is definitely right when he's talking. He's right about everything. But like, it's so true about the, it being easier for a camel to walk through an eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven. And you think about it, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having wealth or being rich, but when you get to that point, when you when you strive after those things and your
Well-
legacy and all this stuff, it just unravels and spirals into.
When it's no longer about what you can do with the wealth, but the wealth and the power itself.
Exactly.
And also, we have a system that cannot be denied. We have a system where the only way to get on top is to step on other people. I mean,
Yep.
you don't become a super billionaire today
No, of
by
course not.
being an honest person. That is not
Exactly. Even on a lower level, I mean, there was a Harvard Business revelation. It was more of an admission of what we already knew, that in large corporations, even kind of your middle management, or we'll say upper middle management, the large majority of them are sociopaths. Now,
Yeah.
not to over, I completely agree. We should not diagnose everything, but we'll just say, how about people who use other people and are cold about it?
Mhm.
I think that is a common thing for anyone
It
who's
is.
worked in an office. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and there's no real way to, in my estimation, to just fix that, because the entire system that we have, it's a hyper
Built
materialistic.
around that. That's how.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can actually trace it
Well-
back, and it goes into.
Well, the problem is not really built around it as such. It has come to be that way. But when we have a monetary system that predicates constant eternal growth year after year, then the business will become more competitive year after year.
Yeah.
And in an increasingly competitive environment, of course, though
But it's
year
not-
after year,
it's not
then the
just
business
that.
most.
It's not just that, because you can actually trace it that
everything-
it started happening.
Everything comes back to the corrupt monetary system.
Well, it does,
At-
but it's not just that. Well, yeah, it's the corrupt monetary system, but hey, I'm getting to something. So, but when they started using game theory is when it really started happening like that. Which basically all business ethics and models and everything, they use game theory these days.
Yes,
If you
but
look
they
into
have
game
to,
theory, if you look into
because
game
they
theory,
have to stay. They have
Right.
to stay on top.
because if one person's
in order,
doing it, everybody has to, or you get
everybody
screwed.
has to do it because everyone
Yeah.
has to pull out enough cash of this corrupt system to pay their own bills and to pay the interest on all of these money. To pay the
Exactly.
inflation that comes.
And they
So
call it
everything-
game theory, but that's probably a misnomer. The guy who came up with it was a paranoid schizophrenic, and it would be a lot more appropriately named paranoid schizophrenic theory. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it goes back to the game theory, and that was almost like purposely fed into the system to make it like that. You know, that's what they started.
course.
Now, if you go to a business college or whatever, and they start teaching you game theory. That's basically what they teach you. You know.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
yeah, and that's the thing is you get people who get on board with a certain mode of thought or a way of living in this system without even knowing like what's going on. I mean, there's people that have good hearts that really want to help people and stuff like that think they're doing the right thing because they're just operating in a place that they've only known their whole life, that
Yeah.
something that's completely constructed. Guys, society's a construct, guys. Just kidding.
So, okay. Anyway, I gotta run. Guys.
I go. Nice. It was nice formally talking to you, bro.
Yeah, you too.
Talking to you on Twitter.
And Jacob, thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Sicilian, it's not your fault I'm leaving. It's nice to meet you.
He's like, he's coming on. I gotta go.
And John, we'll see you later.
absolutely. Thanks, Mazzy.
Okay. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
God bless.
All right. Now it's just the four of us.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. It's all right. My podcast that I had was like a 2-man operation, and man, we didn't always have guests on. That got tough.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was fun. I like all my friends that I worked on that with, but yeah, it's nice that the more the merrier, as
Yeah.
they say.
The first one I did on Bitwave here was just me.
Okay.
That was weird. It was good
Yeah,
once I got going, but
well, honestly, that's what I started doing. It was like around the walk away movement. I was like, I started making just these videos where I would like talk to my camera. I wanted to do it like stick style, you know, but oh man, it was just so awkward for me just talking to a camera by myself. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird about it.
yeah, and even with the chat, like the chat's a couple minutes behind, and so like there's a lot of dead space and everything when you're
Yeah.
talking to the chat. And it always just seems weird.
For sure.
Plus, I'm not good at doing monologues, so.
No, yeah, no, nor am I.
But what were we talking about? So we were talking about.
Well, the sort of underpinnings of postmodernism, or maybe even post-postmodernism, of it being a usurious system, and one that uh, it, baked into it is using people and advancing in that way, where it's not a matter of doing virtuous things, but rather just being utterly selfish.
Absolutely.
That's
Satanic.
our system.
Yeah, and it
Yep,
didn't, it wasn't
exactly.
like that until it started getting that way in the 50s, really, is when it really started doing that. I mean, it was always kind of like that, you know? But,
Well,
like,
do you know that there was another part to MKUltra where the CIA experimented with like quote unquote black magic?
Oh,
You might want
yeah.
to do a Google search about it.
I
Oh,
know a
yeah, I
lot of
know quite a bit about that. And
they
we
like
actually
this
had
stuff.
touched on that a little bit, but we didn't get too deeply into it.
Yeah,
But we had touched on it a bit. But yeah, they definitely had a lot to do with that. And actually, I was talking to Occult Fan before the show, where we talk a lot, and I was actually bringing this up. Well, I'm not going to go into that. I'll go into that another time because that's a long conversation. But yeah, definitely that had a big role to do with it. Basically, the CIA kind of infiltrated and took over kind of a lot of these secret
And then a lot of the
societies.
concepts were injected into the mainstream music scene. You see it all playing out. You had Miley Cyrus as Hannah Montana on a show that little girls are watching, where this girl their age has a double life, and then those girls are sort of growing up as that celebrity is growing up, and once they're around 18 years old, we see the whole degenerate like twerking thing that she was. You see it. You can see all these sort of ops playing out and sort
Yeah.
of shaping the society. One thing that I think is so cool though is you can tell that Gen Z, there's a section of them that know exactly what's going on. They hear the propaganda. They're probably terrified, and so hopefully we can kind of see them Zoomers continue to rise up.
Yeah, we need to
Push
wake more people up.
for sure.
And that's the thing, like, when you start looking at the psychological manipulation, like, they were perfecting it up until a certain point, and then it's been degrading since then. So it's, like, well past its peak, and I don't think it
Oh yeah.
works as well as it used to. They used to do it really subtly,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And they would be saying this, and there'd just be little things that would really speak to you.
Incremental.
Yeah, now it's so blatant in your face that like you could spend an hour on the internet looking something up and figure out everything that's going on in the, you know.
Yeah, I think it was a lot easier, like back in the 50s and 60s throughout them, because a lot of people only had very limited modems of communication. Now with the internet, we can talk from people literally anywhere. We can exchange ideas, do stuff like that. That wasn't really like TV was a big thing back then, TV and radio and everything, so they could easily implement, subliminal messages, the satanic messages, everything like that.
Yeah, and most
Yep.
people did not have access to the information to even know that they're being manipulated at all.
Exactly.
You know,
Why
they
do you? And I'm. Oh, sorry.
don't. Oh, go ahead.
Awkward segue, but I was saying, I was thinking about the whole thing. This is so random. It's gonna sound random, but like the whole Kanye West thing going on, where he got like woke up to what's going on, and he's kind of putting out the message that he's putting out now. It's really interesting. You think about, he did that album with Jay-Z. He and Jay-Z like used to work for Jay-Z, and I remember this was like 2010. Jay-Z would put a lot of occultic, sort of like satanic messaging in his music.
Yeah,
And
that's when
Kanye-
they really started with the whole. Well, he was Rockefeller Records and all that.
Right. And
And
so
that's when
yeah.
they started with the whole like hip hop Illuminati and throwing all the Illuminati symbols all over the place and all that crap. Yeah. Before it was all
Right.
strictly like gangster, and then they started going. Just as the
Well, it was
Illuminati was breaking into mainstream consciousness from basically internet memes,
well, actually, yeah, hip hop like in the late 70s, early 80s, it was a lot more positive. I mean, like the message was
Yeah.
it's like hip hop is saving us from having to be a gangster or do this and that, and then
And then in the
government's
90s it went into the whole gangster rap thing.
Yep.
And there's a lot of crazy stuff with that. I don't know if you ever listened to like what was his name from Public Enemy, Professor Griff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
He talks about that stuff.
he talks about that stuff a lot. But she was there, so he would know.
Yeah. See, like now I'm thinking sort of about the race thing, but for me, I think it is cool. Like, there are a couple of people that are like, oh, I don't know, is Kanye grifting? Like from what he says, I don't think so. You never know. Like I'm still cautious, but what I see him doing when he's going to these different black cities, doing his Sunday service, it's like, to me, it's sort of a beautiful thing because he's trying to bring God back to our society, but even the black community. And the way I see it is like, so you can, black people can get mad all they want about, oh, like we were slaves, our culture was taken from us. Well, their culture became the Bible. When you listen to like even blues or like old black gospel hymns, like they really believed, in that. And I feel like, so you might have your culture stripped from you, but what a gift from God, to have the Bible, to make that your culture. To me, that's like a big opportunity. And so like, I like to do the racist jokes. I get it all, but I definitely think that the blacks in America getting God back in their life would help a lot.
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
And oh, guys, I'm gonna reveal something right now. I'm mixed, guys. I'm half black, half white.
Nice. Bro.
Some people know that about me.
Oh wow, okay.
At first, when I became a Groyper, I was like, "Am I allowed?" One of my friends.
I will make a ruling. You're certainly allowed in Amphibia Twitter.
Right. But yeah, for me, well, I was raised by my mom's family. I was raised by my mom. Guess we know that's probably the white one. But what was I gonna say? But yeah, and so I went to school with white kids, went to private schools, all of that, and it's just been interesting. I have a different perspective, sort of, on race. When I saw, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Sorry to bore you guys. I didn't mean to break up what you guys are talking about, but what was I saying? Oh, okay. So yeah, it was around 2015. Do you remember when those Black Lives Matter protests were going on and the 5 Dallas cops got killed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had this friend who was like a leftist, white leftist type, academic guy who was like, well, it's not a big deal. It's just like the colonialists rising up against the British, man. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? And he assumed I was going to get on board with all this SJW stuff right away. And I was like questioning it. And some of my leftist friends, they didn't like that. They didn't like, they wanted to like call me out or probably like cuss me out, but they're like, oh, I can't. Like you got intersectional power or whatever. But yeah, and so when everybody started pushing this crazy Black Lives Matter stuff, I really kind of had to sit there for a minute. I was like, man, what's going on here? And that's when I started doing my research, and lo and behold, I'm sharing scripture readings every day on Twitter as Lego Groyper.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, I hope you're right about Kanye. I mean, this is where I do tend to have a melancholic temperament.
Mhm.
I've just had my hopes dashed so many times
Right.
that it's hard for me to get excited about any big celebrity thing because I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop the other direction.
Yes. Yep.
But I will say I did listen to one of his interviews that he did. I don't know. I mean, he kind of sounded sincere, so I hope you're right about that. And it's possible for someone on the inside, sort of on the inside, to
Right.
have this moment where they, see the utter poverty of, what the world has to offer, and they do look for something that's eternal. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd say it's possible, but it also seems like, I don't know. I find it hard
I'm being
to trust Kanye
cautious.
for sure.
I would say with everything that he says about the gospel and Christ, the things that he's been saying, especially in his album, sort of line up. But yeah, part of me is like, being cautious because, even especially for believers, it's important to like really look at what's going on, the test, to make sure everything is good, because you don't want to get misled. So, but anyway, on that note, guys, I think I need to get going. I'm sorry that I'm ducking out early, but I'd love to come back on if you ever want me on, bros.
For sure. Anytime.
All right, I appreciate you guys. Talk to you later, bro.
Great to meet you, Lego.
Yep, see you guys. And anybody want to follow me? It's at Lego Groyper on Twitter. So anyway, all right, see you, boys.
Later.
Okay, is Sicilian still with us?
Yep.
Hello.
Yep. So now it's just the three of us.
Well, he was talking about. I listened to the Kanye album, and it's surprisingly good. I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm not like a religious guy. I'm more spiritual. Like I was raised like a really, really strong Christian, and then I had like this I just had like a rebellious phase, and I was like an atheist for like 6 years, and then like in the search of disproving God, I proved God to myself.
That happens quite a bit, actually. You'd be surprised.
It was weird, and like but like I started to think of like just like how can God exist, without religion? Like what things in the world, prove it to me? And I started looking at how the Fibonacci sequence happens everywhere in nature.
Yeah.
Mathematics and physics are just all interconnected. How everything is like. I just told myself, if it was all random, it would be all random. It wouldn't be this precise and this.
Yeah, especially when you start getting the sacred geometry. That's like when you start seeing how it works, you're like, okay, there's no way that just happened on its own.
Exactly.
There had to be some type of designer or something that's putting this together.
And like hearing Kanye's album, and like hearing the stories of him saying like the people like that were working on the music, like he didn't want them to have premarital sex and shit. I don't know. I mean,
Kanye is kind of a nutbag, so it just seems like he's like
he is, yeah.
Tism. That's not. Autisting out on being a Christian now,
Yeah.
Which could be worse. It's been worse, so
I do think he is trying to show people the light, though, because I think he has has seen, especially being in the darkest of the dark in the music industry,
Yeah.
I think he did see it, and I think that's why he can, because he has so much power now in the rap community and music industry that like he's basically untouchable by the elite. So
And
of
they
course,
tried to tear him down so many times. Like, remember he was in the
yeah.
mental hospital not too long ago? What was that, a year or two ago or whatever it was? And I don't keep up with Kanye that much, but you can't miss but seeing him in the news all the time too. So
yeah, exactly. I think he sort of kept, a little bit of faith in there, kept a little bit of light in there, but kept it shied away so he could get famous or whatever, and he got into the dark side, and now he's realizing, how bad things are, and how really bad people are being treated. And so I think that's why he did meet with Trump and was like, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know what any famous people's, intentions are, because like you said earlier, like as we've seen, like we're just waiting for the shoe to drop the other end. You know what I'm saying? So you can never really know.
yeah. It was like, Owen Benjamin comedy here is saying that he's one of those weirdos who think evolution lines up with the parable of Adam and Eve. I was just saying, I actually agree with that. I'm one of those weirdos who thinks evolution actually helps prove the existence of God.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because according to science and the whole materialist reductionism, I wouldn't even really call it science, because science actually comes from knowing. And there's the scientific method, and what they're selling as science these days is material reductionism, and it's not very scientific at all. But so basically their whole story is there's only entropy, and everything started from this one giant explosion, and this winding down, the universe will eventually cease to exist because it'll all burn out or whatever, right? Which is ridiculous, because then how does life arise? How does evolution happen? If you're going from, if all there is entropy, then how does things get more complex, increasingly more complex at that? It's totally impossible. They're mutually exclusive. And so, like Cozy Wizard saying, evolution is in a purely mathematical sense, is impossible without a general intelligence to propagate the change. And I would totally agree with that.
Absolutely. What's it called? I like you said, I think that there had to be something to help our brains grow, at 100 times the rate of all the other animals on the planet.
Yeah.
It grew so fast in such a short amount of time. And have you heard of the stoned ape theory?
Yeah, that's the one where probably our intelligence comes from eating mushrooms or whatever and tripping out, and psychedelic experience. Basically, was one of the big contributors to the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it really makes me think, because I break things down into I like breaking down the group, organize things, and with certain drugs nowadays, what's it called? Like how magic mushrooms are being shown to help veterans with PTSD and stuff like that. How it's not how those kinds of things like psychedelics and things aren't really bringing those veterans down, but they're actually helping their minds. And what's it called? I break things down into like good drugs and bad drugs. And the whole war on drugs is about keeping all of them away, putting a bunch of propaganda about all of them to show that they are bad things and they'll ruin your life. But looking at these recent studies with veterans and with people with depression and suicidal tendencies and everything, them using certain psychedelics, therapeutically, and it's shown to help them way better than any pharmaceutical at a way faster rate.
Yeah, they figured that out with like one treatment of psilocybin or LSD or something. With alcoholics, like it was more effective than anything. In only one dose, they would get,
Yeah,
you know, a much higher. Obviously, not anywhere close to 100%. It's not a cure-all,
of course.
but
Yeah,
like better than
absolutely.
almost anything else. You know what I mean? Which is pretty.
Yeah, and I always say, like I hate pharmaceuticals. I hate the pharmaceutical industry. I hate putting chemicals in my body, and at least ingesting them. And like I've gone through for like 4 or 5 years now. I've gone like completely like homeopathic, where I've just gone completely just all natural with everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to healing and like making myself feel better. I haven't gotten a flu shot in like 10 years, and like I feel fine. Like I'll get sick maybe once a year. Like it's
Yeah,
we're
like I never gotten a flu shot ever in my life, and
Same.
I haven't. You know, I used to get sick a lot when I was a kid, which built my immune system up.
Mhm.
You know, I used to get tonsillitis every year really bad, and but they didn't take out my tonsils ever, and it's a good
Mhm.
thing because now I haven't had it since I was probably about 11 or 12, and
Mhm.
I still have my tonsils.
There we
You
go.
know,
Yeah.
and like I didn't. I'd always like if I did get sick, I wouldn't take antibiotics and stuff. I would just rough it out, you know. And now I
Yeah.
hardly ever get sick at all. I was actually a little bit sick last week, so I didn't stream last week. But that was the first time in a long time that I've been sick at all. And
Gotcha.
even then, I just felt tired and was like, okay, I better take care of this and sleep so I don't get, you know. So took a bunch of vitamin
Yes.
C and slept, you know. But yeah, like your body will heal itself. That's what it naturally does. Which
Mhm.
is another thing, you know what I mean? How does that naturally evolve where you just fix yourself? You know what I mean? Without some type
Yeah.
of intelligence, like, you know.
Every part of what our body does, like it didn't come from nothing.
Yeah.
Someone had to write the code. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Every
And what's
time we
exactly.
crazy is even we know for a fact, even through science, that there's more exists than matter. You know, there's the
Mhm.
whole electromagnetic spectrum and everything. And if you think about it, you're as much uh, electromagnetic field as you are body, because like your blood is primarily iron and it's flowing, so it's a ferrous fluid flowing through at a high rate of speed throughout your body with your heart in the middle. That's gonna create a magnetic field. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's definitely like it's there, but they just dance around it. You know what I mean? And act like anybody that looks into it is pseudoscience or whatever. You know?
Yeah. That even gets into like almost metaphysics with like the have you seen like the diagrams on like the shape of the soul?
Yeah.
It's like a tetrahedron or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that gets
Yeah,
into the sacred geometry. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man. I just
How do magnets? Somebody's asking how magnets work, and I'm like, I don't know, but neither does anybody else.
how do magnets
They just
work?
know it does.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, fucking magic. It's like it has no. They know, or they know, like they know what they do, but they don't know how it does it at all. They just know that it does. If you do this, then this happens, but they don't know why. You
Yeah,
know? Guess they know the how and not the why. Is the
exactly.
They,
Yeah.
they actually confuse those two quite a bit. If you ask them why something happens, they'll tell you how it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A lot of people can't tell you why.
Yeah. And Cozy Wizard's saying that we're all magnetically connected to the planet, each other, and the galactic plane. I'm like, yes, that's true. we all exist within a giant magnetic field, and everything is all. That's actually the key to faster than light communication and quantum entanglement. All kinds of stuff is through the universal magnetic field. You know, that's basically what the universe is, kind of, in a way.
I have this book. It's in California. I'll be heading back to California next week. But what's it called? It's this book that was written like I think in the 80s or 90s or something. And I used to work with this guy at a movie. I used to work at a movie theater. It was like my first job, and there was this real old guy named Paul. And one day my buddy was like, "Hey, go ask Paul about aliens." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like this old like geezer dude. And so like I started asking about aliens, and he starts going off about like the Anunnaki, about like the planet
Nibiru. Yeah.
He literally believed that Jupiter Ascending was a documentary. The movie with Channing, I think it's Channing Tatum, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he literally thought of it as a documentary, but he got me into like doing research on like the tablets of Enki, those old Sumerian tablets.
Yep.
That like they're like original Sumerian tablets that have a bunch of stories from a bunch of different religions, and it's almost like it's almost like a framework almost. I don't know. It's weird. But
Well, it's funny because the whole like Anunnaki and Nibiru thing really came to prominence because of Zecharia Sitchin. And you know, the other people who have translated those same tablets, if you read the other translations, they say completely different things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's really taken, by going back to what I was saying, it's really taken, Sitchin really takes it as the very materialist perspective. Everything's a physical being and everything's, you know what I mean? Well,
exactly, yeah.
Which the ancients were not very materialist at all. They were very idealists, you know? And so they used a lot of metaphor, and they almost didn't even see it as metaphor when they were talking about the gods and telling mythologies, you know? To them, that was the gods, but it was a metaphor or that type of thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I hate to go. I'm struggling a little bit with a bit of a cold that I'm getting over, trying to get over. Jacob, thank you so much for inviting me on.
For sure. I'm thinking it's probably about time to wrap it up anyway. It's been about 2 hours, and I'm getting antsy from sitting in my chair the whole time, so.
Yeah, definitely. Sicilian, it was great to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was nice talking to you guys.
For sure. And I hope you come back again, Sicilian, so you can.
Heck yeah, definitely. It's just like when I'm off work and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'll try to make more, because I do like to talk about things.
Cool. Well, you got a
awesome
standing invitation. So,
all right,
are you in the Twitter group chat that I got for? It's called Rivet, I think.
I don't think
okay.
so.
I'll add you to that too, so that
cool. Sounds good.
Can coordinate. Basically, anybody who's ever been on the show is in that group chat. So.
Okay. Heck yeah. Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thank everybody in the audience for joining us. And we will see you all again next week.
Thanks again, Jacob.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Cheers. This is awesome. We're going to get this thing big.
Yep. All right.
Catch you later.
All right. Stop the